Hello everybody, I'm Soumya Murthy. I'm making a video on command area development and flood control. This is one of the topics in agricultural economics and would be beneficial to the students who will be studying agricultural economics. So let's see what is command area. So command area actually refers to that area which is adjacent to the dams or the water projects. So you have constructed a dam or a water project and there is adjacent area to that particular area we call it as command area. The area receives ample benefits from water available in the storage. So the facilities include irrigation, flood control, electricity generation, etc. So the command areas are irrigated from the schemes which is suitable for cultivation. So the water source provides irrigation to these command areas for cultivation. So basically, these areas we should say are, very lucky because they're attached to these irrigational areas somewhere near the dams or water projects. So there is a lot of benefits given to these land because there is easy access of water and there is electric generation happening, or maybe there is a flood control activity going on. So all this would act in benefit for these areas which are very close or near to the um, water projects. So in 1974-75, the government of India launched this command area development program. So basically, till then we didn't have any specific programs for this command area. So from 1974-75 onwards, we have this program started by Government of India. And this program was mainly to bridge or narrow the gap between irrigational potentials created and actually utilized in major and medium irrigation schemes. So this scheme was supposed to develop adequate delivery of the irrigation water up to the fields. So you have projects, as we discussed in our earlier videos, we have discussed about the minor, medium, major irrigation projects. So basically government was bringing a lot of programs and projects to help the farmers to get their agricultural fields irrigated. So when they were doing this, so actual utilization was also necessary, wherein their scheme was supposed to provide adequate water to the fields. So this they try to make up through command area development program. So the Command Area Development Authority was established, and the main purpose was to maximize the productivity in the irrigation and the command areas through an integrated approach. So now you have your irrigation project separately and we have this command area separately. So you want to bring in that integration, that coordination wherein this could happen. So we would find that construction of the field channels and field drains, okay, then we had to bring in land shaping wherever was necessary, then introduction of rotational supply of water to ensure equitable and assured distribution to individual farm holdings. So basically, it is not just one group activity. You have even individual farmers whom you have to consider. So they have their own farm holdings. You need to supply and give equitable distribution of water to them also. So all these were the main motives that the Command Area Development Authority was started and tried to function. So during this time, the construction of the new canal started. What the engineers would do would create their design maps. While doing so, they chalk out that entire area within an imaginary line that can be included in the irrigation projects under development. So this they called as GCA, or the gross command area. So what the engineers would do, anywhere they're planning, they're constructing the dams, they're constructing these huge projects are happening. So the new canal is being created. When you're designing that, when the engineers are designing these projects, they have this imaginary line that is being drawn, wherein they try to include or decide which areas are going to come under the command area and which can be used later on. So that was called as GCA, Gross Command Area. This includes all the cultivable land as well as barren land, forests, houses, wasteland, roads, etc. So it's not necessary that this has to be an agricultural field. Only then you're going to give water or irrigation to those fields. So irrespective of that, it could be a road, it could be a wasteland, it could be a barren land, it could be a forest area. So anything that would somewhere come near or in their map of designing that land or plot, they would keep it as GCA, which they used for cultivation later on by providing our water and bringing that land under cultivable area, or bringing that under the command area. So this is how the engineers planned it. So the cultivable command area is that part of gross command area that is fit for cultivation or cultivating crops. So the cultivable area, they would try to exclude the forests and barren lands from the gross command area, which is left as uncultivable area. So in addition to this, the total cultivable command area, and we would try to add some more areas to make it as cultivable areas. The net command area is the deduction of the canal works and supply channels in the field from the cultivable command area. So then what are the constraints that we see? But the CAD program was not particularly successful because there were three constraints. So there were some problems or issues that brought along with this program. So the first one was the water supply at the outlet was unreliable. You don't know actually how much water you are leaving out. The available technology was or could not be adopted properly, and the farmers particularly did not participate in this scheme. They were not comfortable, so they did not participate in this particular scheme introduced by the government. So the flood forecasting involves the following main activities. So now when you have dams constructed, reservoirs being done, basically this was mainly to control or check the floods. So when there is excess flow of water, there is flooding which needs to be controlled. So government has planned for irrigation projects, government has planned for command area. Now government should also plan for those areas that would be flooded. So for that, they started this observation and collection of hydrological and hydrometeorological data. So they started collecting these data. The transmission of data to forecasting centers. So you know how we forecast, there is a weather report and you're trying to forecast. So that data was transmitted to these forecasting centers. And analysis of the data and formulation of the forecast and dissemination of this forecast. So you need to try to take out what exactly this data is trying to say. You're trying to take the information from that. So then, what were the conservation measures that was possible? So one, using of contour farming, then creating farm ponds to retain the flow, small checks or creeks for irrigation, use of cover crops in fields to avoid bare lands, following with a non-growing season. Then the measures of water conservations were very useful for reduction of soil erosion and prevention of soil moisture. Sorry, preservation of soil moisture. Further, flood reduction also took place in these with the incidental benefit. So, it is not just that we are trying to bring in flood control measures by having contour farming, by having ponds created or covering off with those lands. We were in turn able to bring in a solution to soil erosion. So we were able to check soil erosion, we were able to reduce soil erosion. At the same time, it also was beneficial to checking of the floods. So further on, flood proofing of specific properties, isolated units of high value may sometimes have to be individually flood proof. So the property unit may be encircled by a high levee of as a flood wall, and the floodplain management and the floodplain of river is formed by deposition of sediments. So moving on, there ought to be a master plan for flood control and management for every flood prone basin. So it's, you have excess water happening, or there is a flow of water which is uncontrollable. So you need to have a master plan. So some of the flood management programs in India is one, construction of dams and reservoirs, and redirecting the excess water to canals and floodways. Excess water can be used for groundwater replenishment. So government is also simultaneously thinking of managing floods, having these activities like constructing dams, reservoirs, and trying to redirect the excess water that is there to canals and to increase our groundwater. So we know that when you're trying to dig your bore wells or tube wells, we find that the groundwater level is coming down. So we are not able to get water at all. So all this can be improved by sending our excess water to those lands. The self-closing flood barrier. We have this SAFB, that is self-closing flood barrier, which is a flood defense system. This is designed to protect people and the property from inland waterway floods caused by heavy rainfalls and rapid melting snow. So basically, when you know that this is happening, you should try to have a defense mechanism which would close by itself. So, so this happens when there is waterways or floods happening from the inland waters. So this way you're trying to protect people, and having a planned disaster preparedness plan, something like a disaster management program where you try to plan and keep, and an integrated solution, also an approach to that, and reduce the peak flood flow by constructing reservoirs. So we know there is going to be an excess flow, there's going to be damage done, you want to reduce it, so construct the reservoirs, and diverting the flood waters through floodways or bypass. So with all this, are we able to relax and say, yes, we have taken care of everything, no problems as such? No, there are some failures happening. There are certain reasons for failures as well. The full utilization of command area is not achieved by the government. So the government planned for certain things, but still it is not being achieved. And there's a huge gap between the irrigation potential created and for the development and the irrigation potential utilized. So during agricultural years, when we look into that, we find there is a huge gap. So what exactly is the potential and what has been utilized? Still there is a gap. And the water supply from the existing irrigation project at the outlet is unreliable. So the supply that you're saying is existing in irrigation projects, you can't just rely on it. So again, there can be a failure. Further, the available technology could not be adopted properly due to lack of knowledge. Sometimes certain things are available, but that is not being made use of because there is lack of knowledge. People don't know how to use it. They are not aware of it, so it's not being utilized. Then participation from farmers was again missing. So we discussed in the earlier part of our video how farmers were not part of this, so they were not involved in these activities. So what happened? This was another reason for this thing to fail. The low pace of development is due to insufficient budget allocation. We know our budget constraints are always there. We have a lot of planning happening and a lot of budget allocations being done. Though irrigation is a priority, we still find there is a shortage or insufficient funds in our budget. So what happens is, though funds are allocated, though we have started the project, we are not able to complete it on time, or it is at a very slow pace. And when it is on a slow pace, further it increases the cost of construction or finishing these projects. So what happens? The delay adds to the problem. So one, we are delaying the project, it is slowing down, the pace is slow, so we are not developing. At the same time, the fund is insufficient. It is adding a burden to the budget allocation. So we know there is rising of costs, so that again would lead to problem in terms of budgeting. And we have lack of availability of areas to set up field and to channelize it, consolidate it, to reduce this problem of flood management, etc. Because we are not able to decisively decide on the number of areas that we require, or what would be the area, or which part of it would be utilized. Again, that is acting as a hindrance. So we would be concluding this video by saying that there are many challenges which need to be addressed. The government should take necessary actions to improve the command area development program. So we saw there were many minor drawbacks, like involving the farmers or trying to get proper budgeting allocation to be done and certain planning to be done. So with little efforts, I think we would be able to solve many of the problems or issues. So let's summarize actually what we studied or what we learned in this video. We discussed about command area, what it is. So it is the area surrounding these dams, reservoirs, or any water system that is there around. And if there is flooding, how we control it, what are the methods to control it, and what are the areas that we cover under the command area, how we do it and how to conserve it, and what was the failure or reasons for failure of these programs. This video gave me immense pleasure in making it, as I feel this would be very useful to all my students who would be studying agricultural economics. Thank you.